but you put 10 master technicians in the room, and each one of them's going to look at something the other one's doing, going, "Why is he doing that?" And I remember when I pulled a BD12 out and started sanding with no belt, he walked over to me and basically said, "You're an idiot," and walked off. But at the end of the day, we ended up with a floor that didn't get over sanded, is absolutely perfectly flat, and it looks like furniture. It's 14,000 feet of furniture. Look.
All right, this is All Things Wood Floor, brought to you by the one and only Wood Floor Business. I'm Steve Diggins. This episode is part 2 of my conversation with master floor craftsman Sprigg Lynn of Universal Floors and Kent Rogerson and Jamie Lambert of Low Country Floors. We've been discussing a flooring restoration, and it's an amazing neoclassical structure in Washington, D.C. It connects 2 wings of the William Jefferson Clinton Federal Building. It is the Andrew W. Mellon Auditorium. Look online at the photos with Wood Floor Business. This project is amazing. If you didn't start from the beginning with the rest of the class, go back to part 1 of this podcast and catch up with the floor pros around the world. Then come back here to part 2, and we're going to get into a deep dive into the sanding and finishing portion of this phenomenal flooring project. Wood floor pros around the world, welcome to All Things Wood Floor with Sprigg Lynn and Kent Rogerson, part 2. And let's get to it. All right. So give me the numbers for the flooring contractors they're going to want to ask. We'll go over them again. How many square feet of what, and what? How much Chevron? How many, diamond block? How big were the diamond blocks? Just give me the technical aspects of what was involved in the wood portion and the aesthetics of it.
33 inches picture framed around. That was down to a little square. Okay. Is the diamonds. And like I say, Steve Bumpus made a nice jig where we could take a fest tool and cut each corner of the diamond, so that and then if we had any scraps, that was used. We didn't waste much flooring at all. Okay. But so I'd say the stage was about 1,000 feet and about 13,500 feet in the 10,000 feet in the field, and then a few thousand on each side. And the room's a little bit bigger because those big massive columns sit on about a 10 by 10 pedestal, but that's part of the room. But we're just talking flooring.
So you just cutting up spline, like you're taking 8-foot splines and cutting them up, or you already had them cut up, and then do you glue? You don't glue? You put a nail into the spline?
Yeah. We glue it, and we put in long strips. We didn't just put individuals because we would route it and then put 6-7 foot spline in there.
How long did that install take?
I think it took us about 7 weeks.
Okay.
Believe me, by the time we got down to those pillars, the first pillar went a little bit slow. But once once you get everybody together and you have a powwow there on what's the best way to go around these pillars. So going around these pillars with 45 Chevron and having them meet each time exactly perfectly is a feat on its own.
On the other side, and with every other column, right? You got to not just get around one.
Me, Steve Seba, Mr. Bun, all of us sat down and we all threw out our ideas and what we can do. And that's when it comes to strategically nailing it. That's why when you're using a manual nailer, you can put just a little more oomph into it, or a little bit lighter nail, and then you could put a little micro crack, and when it comes out the other side, everything is, literally you have to manipulate every single board.
Okay.
And once it's done, it looks like, hey, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it's a big deal.
So now
you get in there with air guns, pop, 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 you'd be in big trouble.
That sounds like that would be a lot of trouble. So When you all right, so you get the thing laid out, you get it done, you get it cut, you get it in, it's set to go. Do you jump right to the sand and finishing? Because at this point, the material's been sitting for quite a period of time. It's had enough time to. You've already acclimated it. Now it's acclimated to the actual installation process. You're going to start getting into the sanding and finishing part of it. Do you send Jamie and Kent off to one side of the building and go, "You boys get going, and we're going to finish up the install work"?
Well, the center part was about 10,000 feet.
Oh, good Lord.
And the main concern was let's finish up completed.
Sure.
The center with the border, with the cork and everything.
Okay.
And then that's when Jamie and Kent went to town.
Where was you said there's cork in there? Where was the cork in there?
Yeah, that's old school perimeter cork all around between the stone and the wood. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So the big thing was that Kent couldn't catch us. We had to finish the wood before he got his sanding machines over there. But we changed a little bit and changed the ball game, and we worked together. And it's all about communication. And each morning we would talk what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. And each evening we talk how we're going to do it, what's next on. It wasn't any surprises. And we all really worked well together.
So you got it's time to sand and finish. And, I've done jobs where you got 8 guys on, big machines, or you got guys with riders. This is a big project. Is this like a gym? You bring in riders, or you guys just each had plenty of machines to just cut that? Well, not only that, but you're cutting multi-directional, right? Because it's Chevron. You got to go 45 square or something. You must have been working could you start 40, 60, 80, or was it good enough to start 60, or did you have to start 36?
So we did. We actually started with, we thought we were going to be able to 50, but we ended up starting with 40 on the floor. But no, so not only did we not use Mac riders, most of our friends in the flooring industry probably think we're crazy, but we pulled, so a couple of our guys were pulling 8-inch Galaxies. Jamie, myself, and Jamie's brother Alex were pulling BD12s.
Yep.
We don't use belts even. We're pulling BD12s without even a belt because pulling with your fingertips, if there's some little tiny topographical inconsistency, you feel it, and you can tell it better than you can with a belt. So we don't over sand any areas like the company we were coming behind. It's our good friend that Sprigg keeps talking about, Steve Bumpus. He's a master technician, and I would say all of us are. But you put 10 master technicians in the room, and each one of them's going to look at something the other one's doing, going, "Why is he doing that?"
Right.
And I remember when I pulled a BD12 out and started sanding with no belt, he walked over to me and basically said, "You're an idiot," and walked off. But at the end of the day, we ended up with a floor that didn't get over sanded, is absolutely perfectly flat, and it looks like furniture. It's 14,000 feet of furniture. Look,
you don't run end to end. Are you doing blocks and sections and corners, and sometimes you have to move in 10 by 10s or something? You just can't go from one side of the building to the other.
We were doing about 20% of the field each pull. And mostly because everything's running on dust containment. Our big machines are running outside to gas-powered dust containments,
nice. And
our 8s are running to pre-separators in the building. And you can't pull that much hose. You can make longer swipes, and you're just dragging hose, and it's awkward and heavier, and even tries to make the machine act funny.
Or you got to have somebody hold the hose, or it starts to kilter the machine off.
Yeah. So we were taking, about 35 foot, if I had to guess, about 35 foot swipes front and back, and then we move on to the next step, and always slightly, we were changing angles, as we go, but yeah, we weren't trying to make full runs down the gym like you would if you had a Mac rider with bags on it,
So you're doing 40 at, let's say, a 45, and then 60 at the other, and then 80 straight? Or you're not doing 60, 60, 40, 40, 30, you're not doubling up on these things?
No, we're not doubling up. But so here's the funny thing. Everybody's got their own way they like to do the angles. If you were to look,
15 degrees, 7 degree, 45 degree,
right? So that there's some feel to what angle you're going to go at, right? But again, you may have another expert watch you do it and question why you're doing it, and then when you explain to them why you're doing it, they're like, okay, makes sense. Carry on, and they go home.
Well,
so, speaking about that, one of the neatest things that has gone on being involved with Sprigg the last, 7 or 8 years, bringing all of these experts together and putting them in a room and having everybody have the same intention to make the project go off, not really having anybody there that's trying to show up the other person. It's the exact opposite. Everybody's there trying to make the other person look good, make the team look good.
Sure.
You know, in so we've been in business since 92, and the last 10 years, Jamie and I both have tried to make it more about our team and those guys really getting the education and knowledge and the credit that they deserve. You know, you heard me mention a minute ago, our head guy, Kerry Smith, you know, he comes in and he's looking at it from a slightly different angle than I'm looking at it from, or that James is looking at it from, or that Alex is looking at it from. And next thing you know, you're standing in a room just with our group where there's, you know, 160, 170 years of experience, all trying to come up with the best way to do one thing. Like say I was going to, you know, try and be the head guy, or Sprigg's trying to be the head guy. Well, then, yeah, you may have 30 years of knowledge, but, you know, 2 heads are better than 1 and 7 or 8.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
When somebody's taking a massive part of the job, I got my ways of doing it, but when that professional comes in there, whatever way that person is comfortable with, wants to do it that way, I said, you take the lead, I'll be right behind you. So it's if that's what they're comfortable with on their process, we'll adapt to their process. We're not going to get in a pissing contest on who, when, why, where. If that's the way the man wants to do it, that's what we're going to do. And that's a good harmonious working atmosphere.
Well, so you guys are, you know what you're talking about. You know where you're headed, so you know what the finish is going to be, so you know what you're capable of doing. You didn't script any grip progressions, but I'm assuming that either all this can become harmonious with the right buffing or rotary machines or something that's going to bring all that back together. Because I assume that
we were kind of like,
yeah,
they likened us to synchronized swimmers out there.
Right. I see that.
No, hey, water popping the floor alone was a feat. That's a lot of water popping.
Sure. Yeah, how do you water pump 14,000 feet? That's one hell of a bug sprayer. Fire hose.
Yes. So Rainbird makes these sprinklers that you can buy.
Yeah.
And they look like little tractors, and it drags the hose across the field. And you know, all of these things are when we talk about experience, you walk into a building. It's funny he brought up the water popping, which seems like a very simple thing, right?
Not that big.
That's tough. If you walk in a building that's got 60-foot ceilings, you know, anybody that's ever laid finish in, you know, the average high-end flooring guy, he's laid finish in a room that's got a cathedral ceiling, or it's open to a balcony or a catwalk.
Or gymnasium, yeah.
Heck, a gymnasium, yes. It's going to off gas faster because it's got more room for the gases to go up into the clouds.
Right.
The same thing. Water's a gas. It turns into a gas that's evaporating. And when you've got air movement, you've got 60-foot ceilings, and just the cubic footage of volume that's in this place. You know, we start putting water on the floor, and a friend of ours actually said, "You're not water popping that floor; you're washing it. You know, you're soaking it."
Right.
But you know, taking that was the biggest room we'd ever worked in. Obviously, I think. But as soon as you walk in there and you start looking at it, thinking about it, and trying to graph it back to some other experience you've had with larger airspaces, you start trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this actually work? You said, well, you know, we got to take a somewhat educated guess here as to how long this water is going to stay on the floor, how long it's going to take it to evaporate.
Do you meter it?
So after we're done, well, we meter it before we put it down, and we meter it after we're done before we put any type of product on it.
Yeah, or you wait overnight and you still meter it, right?
We waited overnight and still metered it because we really did put a lot of water down considering, but because of the airspace, it evaporated way quicker than it ever would in a house. Way quicker than it would.
So you were using cyclonic separators, I'm thinking, and some type of vacuum collection. I know you mentioned you had a gas power unit, which was probably connected to the local units. Did you guys have to worry at all about the alarm systems? I know I've been in places, and next thing you know, no one covered the alarms, and they're going off. And it seems like you kept it so clean you didn't have to worry about that.
Not at all. We didn't set off a lot of times you get in a house and you get some dust or some fumes or something, and carbon monoxide alarms or whatever start going off. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And so Sprigg shared with you, this is part of the EPA building. So this is one thing that I thought was just wonderful. And I told the story to a client today who's worried about the dust in their house. We had people from the EPA stick their head into this building every day while we were sanding. The machines are running in the yard. They're out sticking their heads in our dust containment units and the whole nine. And federal officials from the EPA look at it and go, wow, that's amazing, and go on into the EPA and work.
That's great.
How many hardwood flooring guys in this industry would want to sand 14,000 feet tied to the EPA building and have them sticking their head in at any given moment?
I don't want to sand in Boston and know the EPA is down in D.C. I don't want them anywhere near me. You remember when we went through the lead and all that stuff? Crazy.
They were really happy to take on this Uno coat, professional coating, 0 VOC.
Yeah, give me
hard
that.
wax oil. And they were like, really? What's the best finish? We said, this is because you can maintain it. Right. It'll look historically correct. And, you put a surface finish over that whole thing. When's the next time you're going to recoat that thing? You'd have to shut it all down and buff it. This way, that natural hard wax oil is what went down, and that was the art. That was hand trial, and my good friends from South Carolina got on their hands and knees and physically hand trialed every inch of that product into that floor twice.
Yeah, those magazines are that's in Wood Floor Business. There's a bunch of photos of that. It's amazing to watch because it's such a large project. What was it? Okay, I get the decision. It's like if you do a large restaurant, you put a poly finish in. It's just going to get scratched and then it gets soaked and then it gets worn. So, what do you think the maintenance is on this type of a coat? What was it? Was it a hard wax, like a two component?
Yes.
Okay. And how much did you have to put? Did you just go on till did you put it on with buffers or it's all trowel? Pad? You didn't use carpet pad?
Hand trowel.
Hand trowel.
So the first coat of oil, like I said, we water popped it really aggressively. So we came in and hand troweled the first coat. We were trying to do two things. One, we're cutting off any grain rays with the blades, and we're actually making a slight little slurry of grain rays with the oil. And it's almost like trowel filling with the slight amount of grain rays and getting this oil really deep into the floor. If you were to watch sections of the floor get done, it may have even been considered to the person watching a video of it over troweling it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But trying to get this oil compacted as deep into the open pores as we possibly could on the first coat. The second coat, we just buffed it on and buffed it off.
Right, because it's not going to take much more after that, right? You can just see it's done.
It's filled up at that point.
That's amazing. I never thought of your water pop would stain your water. I never thought of water popping, but that'll really get deep penetration.
Deeper in.
Yeah,
there's more product.
It's quartered material. It's going to want to fight you.
Yeah. So take Spruce, when we first started talking about this job, back to the logistics of Mike, I think you're talking about Mike, a guy that's down here close to us in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. I'm familiar with him. I don't know him, but I'm familiar with him. He's down in Georgia. One of the things leading up to these type jobs, as Sprigg said, there's so much on the line, there's so much liability. You've got to be as proactive as possible. The year that we first started talking about doing this, there's actually a couple other buildings in D.C. that we were trying to advise them properly on finishes to use. The Pro Coat products, Steve Bumpus actually and Steve Belrose asked me, said, have you tested this stuff? Have you tried it yet? And I said, well, I had a couple cans of it, not done much with it. And they started telling me they really liked the product. So I was like, you know what? Before we start locking in and say, yes, we advise you to do this. I get that it's low VOCs, but before we advise you to do this, Jamie and I got on a plane, flew out to Steve Mitchell's place in Little Rock, Arkansas. And there was some other contractors there, the Lorsing brothers and guys like that. But we spent some time with them at their facility trying to do our due diligence to make sure we understood what we could and couldn't do with the product. Then we came back here and did a dozen jobs with it before we ever went to D.C. and we had to give it our stamp of approval before we went forward with it. If somebody was just to take a product, I don't care what any rep says about it, and just went by that and went and tackled a job of this size on some new product they've not experimented with and tested and picked apart even, finish reps sometimes don't like us because we pick their products apart. Not trying to be mean, trying to get better.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kent, that down there at ProCoat, you can call Austin or his father, the owners of the company, and they're a big company, and they will straight out take your calls and spend a lot of time. They're Johnny on the spot. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't his dad a chemist too, right?
Yes.
So Steve Mitchell, the owner of ProCoat, so we were doing a set of chambers at Supreme Court right after the Mellon Auditorium, and I had a question that I felt like I knew the answer to, it was, I think it was a Saturday night. We were at the Supreme Court. It was a Saturday night, and I called Steve Mitchell Saturday night, and he answered my phone and went into more detail than what you would ever get any rep to do. In saying that, we've got wonderful reps. As I'm sitting here and brag about Steve Mitchell taking our calls and answering our questions, if you take just this one job that we went to DC and do, I can think of our main guy that takes care of us from Ampro that brings us most of our sundries. He is shipping products from Charlotte, North Carolina to Sprigg's place for us that most of was backup. The guy at Bona, there's a guy there named Todd Love there that's in the parts there. That he's not a rep. He's not out at most people don't know him, but he's the parts guy at Bona. He was, like Sprigg said, it's COVID. He was pulling strings and finding stuff. I might not ought to tell how many favors he did for us to get us parts and backup parts for equipment.
Hey, Kent, to ride on that, we were running short on adhesive, and Wayne Highlander stepped up. I said, I don't know where you're going to get the adhesive, but I need it. So the whole community, distributors and manufacturers, really stepped up. Nobody really walked away from us. They found a way because they wanted to be part of this too, and they're good, straight up people. But that's a good sign when these people are standing behind you, because they could just put you off to the side.
Yeah, for sure. If you think about it, and that's one thing that I told Jamie that I feel like is really a blessing in this industry. We were up in DC helping Sprigg with multiple jobs. I guess I sort of name dropped a minute ago doing the Supreme Court just a few weeks after this. Well, we thought we were going to need some pack stop filler from Burger Sidell. We didn't have any. Nathan Kelly shipped some next day or to us at Sprigg's office. We had ProCoat behind us. We had Bonus. So these guys are all, the competitors. They all make similar products than their competitors. But all of the reps that we have, anyway, I feel so blessed because all of our reps that we work with, you pick up the phone and call them and say, we need something. And they are just, they're just all over it. And you couldn't pull off jobs like this without, the compilation or the whole group.
Hey, there was a guy that asked a question, Matt Garcia down in Texas, and he wanted to know how we got together. Right. But this has been years in the making, and we form relationships, and it's not just, hey, can you come up and do this job? We talk all the time, and it's a team. We all get together and knock these jobs out, but it isn't just like we put an ad on Facebook and say, hey, can you come help me? We vet everyone. The guys we bring up vet their own people, and we're all 100% lockstep on the same page, which works out fantastic.
I think floor pros are telepathic. They think they're the only ones that, we've talked about it. You can walk onto a job and I could go down and work with you guys, and in a few minutes, we're just working. There's no gabbing, talking, discussion. I know where I need to be. You know where you need to be. If it just...
Hey, Tina Boone called in, and she was asking about the layout. Did we know where we're going to start and stop?
Sure.
Now, we knew where each point had to go and each diamond, but the end of the pattern ended where it ended. Now, that Boone family, I tell you what, all of them, nephews, brothers, uncles, they're all first-class floor people right there.
You mentioned the vendors. A lot of times there's so many people involved in there. It can get competitive with certain things. But I will say, when people read this article and the piece that Sprigg wrote, there's a little section at the bottom that mentioned who contributed. It's over 40 different companies, manufacturers, vendors in one way or another that had a little piece of something that went into this. It's a big project, from abrasives to poly to finishes to anything. Sprigg,
well, I don't think besides Pro Coat, I don't think anyone could actually fill the entire order, because, like I say, we're coming out of COVID,
right?
And there's a problem getting product.
You have supply chain issues, right?
We tried to get some pads there for the power drive interface pads. I had to go to my cousin's showroom, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm taking these off the demo machines. I need these." He didn't have any, but he said, "Go ahead and take it."
Right.
It's funny. You mentioned Matt Garcia a minute ago. This job, I met Sprigg, actually. So I obviously knew who Sprigg was. There was a couple of phone calls, but I never met Sprigg until, Sprigg, 9 years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. We met at the NWFA show. And so Matt Garcia, we were in, I think Howard Brinkman, somebody had a thing one morning at the expo, and Jamie and I were in there. And over to my left is Matt and his mother, I believe. I think it was his mother that was actually with him. It was a year that Matt won his 40 year, yes, for what he did in his showroom there. And I didn't know Matt, but he was there. He was sitting right beside us. I kind of struck up a conversation with him. We talked for off and on for 30 or 40 minutes. Had no idea who he was, telling me he's from Texas, and we chit-chatted about business a minute, and I was like, I really like that guy. Well, the next day he's getting a Florida Year trophy. I'm like, I know I like that kid for some reason.
It's funny you say that, because one of the first podcasts I did, one of the early ones, was Sprigg, and then the next one of them was Matt Garcia. And so Matt and I recorded the very second appearance of somebody, and Sprigg's article came up, and we're doing this. Sprigg will beat Matt. So he'll be in there first. But we've been teasing Matt. He's got this treehouse at his house. And I've said this every podcast. All the people you see right here, the plan is we're all going to go to Matt's place, and we're going to get in that treehouse, and we're going to do like maybe a live Facebook version of this. Leaving the language, leaving everything. We'll talk about all parts of it. Sometimes I hang up and Sprigg says the greatest stuff, or I talk with Kent the other night. They said, you got to talk with Kent for a couple minutes. Yeah, 2 hours and 9 minutes. And some of that stuff, I think we really need to record. It's fascinating, the other side of our trade and, what's involved. So you guys are always completely...
Hey, Steve, I see Veronica Scaron, young lady from Youngstown, Ohio, and she's very knowledgeable.
She's in my speed round questions, but
oh, really?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the people you're mentioning, I had them all saved for your speed round. But yeah, go ahead. Veronica.
Well, I was just saying, she wanted to know what the best moment of the entire job is.
Correct. Yeah.
And besides putting down the last board or the last drop of finish, is when those massive amount of 17, 20 government officials combed that every inch of that floor, and they said, first class work. Now that's a hard thing to pull off. That was a pretty proud moment, because there a lot of stuff had to come together, and a lot of curveballs had to be caught and thrown back to make that happen. And I think that was pretty cool.
I had that written up for the speed round questions, because you've already been through them before. No, it's funny because you're right. But I know that when she posted that, then we talked about Mike Simodi, and he had mentioned about the manpower and the labor and that. But he did have a second question, if you're looking where I was looking, and he said, ask Sprigg what his diet and exercise program is so that we can understand where the hell all your energy and drive comes from.
Well, it's called Farm Fit. I'm a gentleman farmer.
There you go.
So after work begins again. So that's I try to stay in step, and but I think Kent likes those monster drinks, doesn't he?
Kent,
I've been trying to cut back, Sprigg.
Well, hey Steve, when he's behind that BD 12-inch Galaxy for 12 hours, he needs more than water. I tell you what, he was working that. You worked 12 hours behind that 12-inch Galaxy,
7.5 horsepower
with
motor
no
with a
belt,
7-inch
belt
flywheel.
on it.
That's a big machine. It's a big baby.
It's
a big machine. We were talking about this. We were talking about this a few minutes ago. Talking about the last board, or Sprigg was bringing the last board going in. So Sprigg's got this guy that's like, he's kind of like our Kerry. He's his head guy. And Stephen, he was stressing because we showed up rolling in and he wasn't quite ready. And so Steve Bumpus flew down and really got with Stephen and Jamie and Kerry, and they came up with a plan and put all the guys to it, and they finished it up. And Steve Bumpus had to go back. Well, he knows that Steve likes to sign the last board and put it in the floor whenever he finishes the job.
One of those guys.
So this is how much of a teammate this guy is. He signed, forged Steve Bumpus's name to the back of the last board. We all stood there as he nailed the last board in the floor, and it wasn't his name. He put Bumpus's name on it.
You tell me you put a forgery in a federal building while Sprigg's trying to collect some money over there?
But it just shows all the respect that all these guys have for each other. He made sure he knew that if Bumpus would have been there for the last day, that he would have signed the last board and put it in. He made sure that happened, even though he wasn't there.
We even had Steve. There was a guy, Daniel Moore, came up from Richmond, Virginia, and I don't know if you know Daniel. His family was at E.T. Moore. They probably have more longleaf Southern heart pine than anyone I know. But he's a good guy too. And Steve Seabaugh out of Missouri came in and at a drop of the hat, because we were running behind. Believe me, we were running behind with all that subfloor work, and Kent and Jamie were right on our backside, so we had to bring in the superstars.
That's great. So Jamie's going to call me later when you guys are around and go, listen, man, half this stuff was bullshit. And to answer TJ Haas's question,
I'm me and Ken under the table.
What was TJ Haas's question online? First one to curse.
Sprigg.
That's what we said. I think it was just me. You guys behave yourself. What are you doing behaving yourself? Bunch of floor pros.
I
Go ahead.
I got a construction mouth, but Sprigg wins. So sometimes I'll call and talk to Sprigg on the way home if I'm driving or something. And a lot of times, my father-in-law Jim Stropel will ride with me places, and I'll have Sprigg on speakerphone, and we'll get done with the conversation. And Jim's like, he does all that fancy work and all. Does he talk like that on those jobs? I'm like, no, that's buddy talk. That's buddy talk. He doesn't talk like that.
That's exactly. Sprigg mentioned it in the podcast. He said that, being licensed or certified or et cetera, I am, and people up here will say there's no such thing. I had to fly down to Falls Church and get certified, and it had to be flooring. I can't even work in D.C. without being certified in carpet, vinyl, tile, stone, and hardwood. So they don't do that up here. And I think down there, it's a good place to start. And where you guys are from, do you have to have a license or a certification or anything for where you're working?
So it's crazy. I had this conversation this morning with two of our local builders. I have a residential builder's license. And the reason I went and got my residential builder's license 25 years ago is not because I want to build houses, because I'm not trying to compete with the hand that feeds me. But in the state of South Carolina, we have what you call specialty contractors, and then you've got residential contractors and general contractors and unlimited general contractors. So we would be considered a specialty contractor in floor covering. Well, in the state of South Carolina, all you have to do is know someone who is educated enough to fill out a form and have, $450 or something like that now, and you send it in, and they send you a sticker that says you are a licensed specialty contractor, and here's your contractor's number. Other than plumbing and electrical, none of our contractors here are having to go get certified or even having to go through an apprentice program.
Okay.
So what happens in our state is you get very opposite ends of the spectrum. You can get some of the finest craftsmen you've ever seen in our state, and you can also get the polar opposite.
Well, hey, Ken, up here in D.C., we got some strict laws. Got to have a bond. You got to have a sales license. You got to have a business license. You got to have clean hands every year. You go through a background check. Even with all that, there's still people out there working under the radar, big time.
Sure.
But they're not going to work in a government building because they check you out. But that's one thing that's positive working for the government is it weeds out all your what we call bullshit people, if I can say that.
There, now we're tied.
But hey, look, also, Steve,
yes, sir.
If everything was perfect on the job and everything was flat and level and the wood was right, that isn't what makes a first-class craftsman wood floor person.
Correct.
It's all the diversity thrown at you, all the curveballs, and all the experience, and you get used to it. I embrace problems. I don't get all flustered. I sit back, bring it in. Let's find a solution. Let's get a plan. Let's move forward. So that's what makes great floor guys is problems. So if you have a problem, just overcome it and put it in your memory banks because you don't want to do it again.
Hey, Wood Floor Pros. This is Kim Walgren, the longtime editor of Wood Floor Business. Make sure you don't miss the article the guys are talking about on today's episode or any other cool projects and articles by making sure you have your own subscription to Wood Floor Business magazine. You can get the print or the digital edition for free by going to woodfloorbusiness.com and clicking on Magazine. And when you're subscribing, don't forget to also check the box so you get the Wood Floor Business e-news in your inbox every Monday and Wednesday. You'll be in the know on all the latest industry news and new products. That's it for now. Let's get back to Steven's conversation with Sprigg, Kent, and Jamie.
Floor pros don't run from anything. And you all know the guys coming up through the ranks. They have one little problem. They might be owed $7,000. They'll ditch the $7,000 and they'll go hide. They'll disconnect their phone. Go fix it. Make it right. Get in there and make things happen. I wanted to ask before we kind of wrap everything up with Sprigg, does this particular project, how does it rank with, you've done a lot of really great projects. How does this one rank with the others? Top 3, top 1, top 2, top 10?
You know how everyone says most important job is the one they're working on?
Sure, yeah.
It's there's some validity to that. It's fresh in my mind. I'm talking about it. And once in a while, these other jobs we did in the past, not saying you forgot about them, they'll come up to the surface or someone will talk about them. So, you know what? Any challenging job we do and do it right and get paid for it, that's a good job in my book. And this job is, you know what makes it better or more interesting or fun is we can bring other people in and we all have a good time and share a good experience, and we all learn from each other. And at the end of the day, we want to have some fun. So this ranks up as a top challenging job. Yeah, right there in the top 100. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. It ranks up there, though.
When you finish up a project like this, I guess people are probably going to ask anyway, is once it's done and you got everything's filed in, everything's done right, the work's acceptable, and you're ready to bail out of there, is it pretty easy to submit all your final submissions and get paid decently and you're up and boom, 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 you're off and running? Or does it take a long time? Right.
Sometimes it's just like a job site. You got curveballs thrown at you.
It's
so
like a punch list.
Yeah, if you don't have anything on the punch list, it's hard not to pay somebody. So that punch list adds to not getting paid. That's what we want to do.
Sure.
Best foot forward. But
makes sense.
Pretty much you get paid or you go out of business. That's at the end of the day. Without all the details, we're trying to take someone's money, not take it, earn someone's money, and have it transferred from their bank to our bank as quick as possible. That's our end goal.
I got you. You guys looking at Sprigg? It looks like you're in a cave. Like where you look like a miner. Where is this an automobile? Where are you?
That's my third job. I'm a West Virginia coal miner.
I knew it.
And now I'm up here somewhere on the Maryland-Virginia line.
Okay.
And but what are your rapid questions there? You got any rapid questions?
Listen, we're going to wrap it up, guys. And Jamie, Ken, thank you very much. I don't usually. There's a series of rapid fire questions, and Sprigg's been through them and you haven't. So I'm going to wing it. I'm going to throw them around at you, and I'll just point at you and go with them. The idea would be to answer them as quick as you can, and then we'd be good to wrap it all up. So let's start with we're going to go Sprigg, Kent, Jamie, and just go around real quick. On this project, Sprigg, your proudest moment?
When the government officials gave the thumbs up and no punch list.
Okay. Kent, proudest moment on this particular project?
Well, I would say that exact moment, but being able to turn around and look at our crew that went up and did the sand and finish work and say, you guys, we just had 15 to 17 people inspect every inch of this floor. They spent a day looking to find problems, and there was not one item on the punch list with these guys. Being able to, our guys had taken off heading back to South Carolina, be able to call them and say, you guys, I asked you for your best. You gave me your best, and not one person could find not even not a swirl mark or anything.
Okay. And Sprigg brought it up earlier. This was Veronica Scourin, I believe. She brought up these questions, so it's helping me with my speed round. So if we go to Jamie, on this particular project, what was your proudest moment?
So up top, there's a balcony that looks down over the auditorium. So I remember walking up. They actually had it closed off, and I went up there anyway. At some point, they had closed it off, and I'm looking down, and I'm watching all of our guys and all of Sprigg's guys. And when you're working, you're in the middle of it. You're not paying attention to everyone else. You're busy doing what you're doing. But when I walked up there and I was able to look, I'm like, this is incredible. You got to think, the guys you work with, you spend more time with them than you do your families.
Yes.
And so being able to see everybody working like a well-oiled machine, you got to think we're hours away from home. We have the capability here when we're working on jobs where we visit a house 6 or 8 times before we ever start. Well, Kent and Amy had gone to D.C. and put their eyes on the job, but when we got there, this is the first time I'd ever even seen the building. And so the logistics of it is tough just in that respect, because you can't run back to the shop and fix something. So you got to be prepared. But right, being able to leave that job site and go room with the guys, eat dinner with the guys, spend some time with them, that's really important, I think, for a company in general.
Gotcha.
So just standing up on that balcony and watching everybody work, that was a proud moment for me.
Kent, if you weren't a floor pro, what do you think you would have been doing?
If I wasn't a floor pro?
Yep. What would you do?
So I wanted to be a pro motocrosser when I was younger.
There you go. Sprigg, how about Sprigg? If you weren't a floor guy, what do you think you'd have been?
Two. Either I would have been an attorney or a farmer or both.
Okay. Jamie, how about you? If you weren't a floor pro, what would it have been?
Probably an engineer.
There you go. I won't hold that against you. All right. I'm going to start with Jamie because it's the most obvious. We make a movie about this. What actor plays you?
What actor plays me?
Yeah.
But you give him a minute.
I'm asking him because he's the most handsome of us. I'm just throwing him a softball here.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
All right, we're good. I'm going back. Kent, how about you? Who plays you? I got a bunch of answers for that one. Who plays you in the movie about this extravaganza?
Jesus, I don't know.
Jesus is going to play you. I didn't know.
You remember the old guy, what's his name? Sam Elliott that was in. He plays the old rough and tough, raggedy guy.
I told Sprigg earlier, just say Sam Elliott. He goes, who the hell is that? I'm like, that's it. Sprigg, who plays you in the Lifetime movie?
Of course, Clint Eastwood. Are you kidding me?
Damn, there we go. All right, guys, really, so we'll start with Sprigg. A pet peeve. You've been in this a long time. What really just pisses you off? Pet peeve in flooring.
Somebody just puts the board in just because they put their hands on it. You got to look at that board.
Slap it in. Kent, how about you? Pet peeve.
People that call themselves wood floor professionals that are dishonest and do not tell their homeowners or clients the truth about what they're doing.
Jamie, how about you?
saying that you're doing something and actually not doing it and getting paid for it. That's a big one for me.
Do you have a favorite tool that you would never part with? What's your favorite floor tool?
I think I would have to go with one of my old BD12s. We showed up there with 20-year-old BD12s to do that work.
B12 is a Galaxy big machine, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a
drum and belt. Okay.
Yep.
Jamie, favorite tool?
I'm going with the BD12 too.
Nice. You'd be surprised how many people go scraper. It's you're the first guys to actually say their equipment. You got to be proud of that machine that you're behind. We figure we've gone almost 2 hours. Now we lose Sprigg.
So here's the thing about Sprigg. When he said he had pulled over to the side of the road to talk to us, there's a good chance he's pulled over in the grass in front of the Washington Monument, parked in the grass. I've seen him do it. So he might have been arrested. You don't know.
Yeah, you never know when he's got something going down there. But I spent half my week calling people saying, listen, I'm calling you because Sprigg threatened me if I didn't. Like I talked to his cousin, Ray, and I go, listen, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Your cousin said, son, you don't call my cousin. I'm going to break your arms. You get this done, you get it done now. I'm like, okay, I got it. He is something.
Sprigg is trying to get everybody some credit for the parts they play in the mechanism, all the different the cogs in the machine. I guess.
I think that's the one thing that you guys all do, and the more we're doing the podcast with Wood Floor Business and bringing it together, I believe in the industry as a fellowship. I believe all you guys are colleagues. We speak a whole other language, and everyone that I talk to says they have a lot in their lives that comes from the forest to the floors. That's just how it is. We're very thankful for that. And the more we talk about these things, Sprigg said a million times, well, why don't we go here? Why don't we go there? Let's go help, Michael Purser out, or let's go see Matt Garcia, or let's go see Angelo DeSantos. And everybody wants to bring this community together. I think that's the future of flooring. Every time there's been a deficiency in our industry, it's been not having enough pros out there in the field and way too many manufacturers. We need to keep people educated as to what it is that we do and how we do it properly.
I completely agree. Also, too, you talk about fellowship, if you don't mind. We've given a lot of people there, the pat on the back for all the help and assistance that we had getting ready for this project, suppliers and all. But if you don't mind, our team that we took up there, myself and Jamie, but our lead guy is a guy named Kerry Smith, who is just phenomenal.
Sure.
We've got guys that work for us. James Swinton, Jamie's brother, came to work for us right out of high school. He was with us for 25 years. Alex Tilton and Josh Clark. We got a young guy that works for us. His name's Josh Clark, who is learning at a faster rate than anybody I've ever seen. Young guy, is just impressive, smart, impressive. Another young guy that helped us on this project, Derek. His name's Derek Hammond. He young guy, he's got a father, trying to learn and move forward the best he can. And I don't know if I mentioned James Swinton. So we got a guy that'll outwork just about anybody in the industry. His name's James Swinton, and those guys are our team. And when Jamie was talking about standing in that balcony and watching them work like a well-oiled machine, it's almost like a coach. You know what I mean? If you see your team making the perfect play over and over again, without you having to be in the middle telling them everything to do, it means you practice properly. As we do houses and jobs here, I tell everybody, we do, even if it's a small house, you do it to your best ability because you practice like you're going to race back to motocross. You practice like you're going to race. That way, when you show up to the big show, whether it's, you name the project, the Andrew Mellon Auditorium, or the fanciest house in the neighborhood, you're not having to regroup and put on the show properly. You're used to doing it that way because it's practiced properly day in and day out. Anyway, I just wanted to mention those guys because they make us proud every day, not just on a job like this.
You make a good point. I had guys that I've spoken to that were working down in the West Wing, and I remember running into them a month later, and they just came in for some screens, and I said, "Weren't you just down at the Capitol?" where are you today? They go, we're up in Sandown, which is a tiny little town in New Hampshire. And I go, what are you doing? They go, we're in a log cabin sanding cat urine. I go, but you were just but flooring people will take that job just as serious and in detail as the project that you guys work on. It's about every foot, every they say game of inches. It's every foot. I see flooring people, they won't stop. You need to stop them and say, take a lunch, take a break, drink something. Especially a job that big, it's laid out in front of you. You don't want to stop. You keep going and you keep going and you keep going.
Yeah, for sure. James Swinton, the last guy I mentioned there, he won't take a lunch. He works through lunch every day. Did it today. But, just like you were talking about, so we're in a very small town. People ask us where we come from. I was talking to I think I was talking to John Booth yesterday or the day before, and he's in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was trying to tell him how small of an area we were. So I was just Google searching the population of our hometown. It's 9,000 people, and so we deal with everything from the highest end stuff in resort neighborhoods to very small houses. And a lot of our local supporters here, we almost have, I would call them supporters more so than clients. They're part of the family, part of the team too. And we've had some people every once in a while make comments, well, I heard you were in DC doing a house that we're not supposed to mention in the Supreme Court and the Mellon Auditorium and all this kind of stuff. And you're probably not going to want to do our little house. And the first thing I think of, your little house is what we train on, what we've paid our kids' meals on, and where we got this good to get invited by somebody like Sprigg to come participate in these jobs. What you just called little house is our pride and joy. That's our foundation. Let's say you've got a guy that makes $50,000 a year. His wife makes $45,000 a year, and they put every dime they can into a much smaller house that nobody's ever going to see a picture of. But it's that man's castle. It's just as much of a privilege to go in there and do his floor to the best of your ability so that he can live on it and have it, not have to replace it in 15 or 20 years. It's just as much of a privilege.
All right, guys, hold on one second because we lost Sprigg, but let's see if we can. Hey, Sprigg, we got you on my phone. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you.
Where'd you go?
This thing cut off, and then my son was calling me 100 times. He was at the veterinarian. The dog was at the vet, and needed a credit card, and he was having problems. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man.
Well, we thought we were going to go over our limit. There it is. We're still recording. I just, let's call Sprigg and let's get him back online so at least I can thank you for being here. And listen, we've never had anybody that didn't, go an hour, but we've never had anybody go 3, 2, 1, hold it, 2 hours. Boom. We got it. I'm going to let you go do your thing, and we're going to let these gentlemen roll. But this is a start of a great future for all of us. I think that we should be doing a lot of this down the road. We'll let you guys go. I really, really appreciate all your time. Thank you very much for being all things wood floor. Guys, check out when Wood Floor Business puts out Sprigg's articles. They're brilliant. He wrote them super well. He must have had help from his wife. And the photos are amazing. You guys are the best of the best. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you much.
Thank you, Stephen.
You guys say bye to Sprigg. Bye, Sprigg.
Bye, Sprigg.
Bye, Sprigg.
Thanks for taking a deep dive into this amazing job with us. To read more about the Mellon Auditorium project and see all the photos and videos, go to woodfloorbusiness.com and put Mellon, that's MELLON, Auditorium, in the search bar. And if you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review All Things Wood Floor. Thanks for listening.